Since the Brexit vote in 2016 and the debates between deal or no deal, Remainers have taken the line to scare us about a no-deal Brexit. But the funny thing is, they don't even know what that means. For example, since they lost the vote, they've been going around saying that people didn't actually vote for a complete exit, meaning that they didn't vote to come out of the single market and the customs union. But during the referendum, the same Remain side warned us that if we do vote to leave, we'll be fully out. They even warned us about the so-called economic consequences.
The IMF today finds that a vote to leave would cause, in their words, a protracted period of heightened uncertainty, financial market volatility, and a hit to output.
Voting to leave the EU now really is a one-way ticket to a poorer Britain, not just in the short term, but for decades to come.
New Treasury analysis shows that if we left the single market and relied on the rules of the WTO, then after 15 years we'd be doing £200 billion less trade every year in today's terms, and we'd miss out on over £200 billion of overseas investment into our country.
So that's that. People knew what they voted for. But now the debate is on deal or no deal. First of all, let's explain what a no deal actually is. No deal simply refers to not having a withdrawal agreement, the divorce aspects of Brexit. No deal doesn't refer to no trade deal. Almost every single Brexit voter still agrees with a free trade deal, as that means we will be a free and sovereign country that has voluntarily agreed to trade with the EU, instead of being tied to EU laws by force. Now, in order to leave the EU and then signing a trade deal afterwards, you don't actually need a semi-tied withdrawal agreement, which remains as partly in the EU. This was basically the EU's dirty strategy from day one, and Theresa May simply agreed to it. God knows why. But now no deal is more likely, so Remainers are freaking out and spreading lies about all this. Firstly, this.
No deal is ever more likely, sad to say, because it's very clear from the latest YouGov opinion poll, looking at Conservative members, party members, what their priorities are. It's very clear that close to 60% of them would go for Brexit, even over preserving the union.
They say that no deal is no trade deal, so it means high tariffs, a threat to the union when it comes to Scotland and Northern Ireland, and basically end of the world. So let's have a look at the very balanced, impartial and professional Channel 4 scaring us about all this.
One of the first questions would be, what about the UK border? If there's no agreement about customs checks, there could be big delays.
The biggest risk of a no-deal Brexit is the potential shock to the economy.
Under WTO rules, we could introduce charges on cabbages coming into the UK from the EU. That means cabbages and other food would get more expensive for me and you.
Now, before this guy comes across convincing, don't be fooled. He's lying. Every scary thing that these people are saying would technically apply if Brexiteers wanted Brexit to make the UK isolated and turn it into an anti-trade country. But they've all said that they want the UK to be free of the EU to freely work and trade with countries from across the world. Which means no-deal Brexit doesn't actually mean no free trade Brexit forever. Now, what happens if we leave the EU without a withdrawal deal? Because that's what we mean by no deal. Not trade deal, no withdrawal deal. As the UK already has trade arrangements with the EU, it can easily leave without affecting trade. But how? Under WTO rules, both sides can agree to a temporary free trade agreement if they declare to the World Trade Organization that they are negotiating and working towards signing a permanent trade deal in the future. This is all thanks to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which is part of the WTO rules. Article 24 of GATT gives us the freedom to maintain zero tariffs and keep the same conditions whilst we are negotiating a future trade deal with the EU. This means the same trade rules would apply without us getting stuck in a permanent customs union. This was the biggest risk with Theresa May's withdrawal deal. A temporary FTA dealing only with tariffs can be extremely simple. Dr. Lauren Bartels, an expert in trade law at Cambridge University, has produced a one-page draft of such an agreement. In the case of a temporary UK-EU zero-tariff standstill agreement, there is no need to invoke the provisions relating to an interim agreement, because existing tariffs are zero, and there's no need to phase them. The temporary FTA is a fully compliant FTA under Article 24, and there's no need for an interim agreement. So what do we do now? We have a Conservative government, so we rely on our current MPs and government to deliver this. But luckily, we are changing our Prime Minister. which means we should support the candidate who will do this. Now, out of Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, only Boris has this plan. So it's quite simple. Regardless of what you think of Jeremy or Boris personally, you've got to back the right plan, and that's Boris. Otherwise, we won't leave the EU in October. So we should continue fighting for Brexit, and if you want to support our campaign and this channel, you can join the Cabinet Club. The link will be in the description. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell next to it, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.